who wants a pot of coffee? I just made coffee. You want a cup of coffee? Sure, there you go. Who wants coffee? Anybody else want coffee? Who wants coffee?
And now it's time for the man with the caffeine, the new tropics for the brain. It's Coffee with Mike. Hang in, hang tight, grab your cup, and let's get this thing started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Java Chat. As I'm trying to pull off my reading glasses. For those of you watching on YouTube, that looked really good. I have a very interesting guest today. Somebody that talks about a subject that I would normally be absolutely passionate about because I actually miss a lot of it.
Relatable.
I have here Mollie McGlocklin, who is, in my opinion, a sleep expert after reading some of her story. And I want to read you guys her bio. That's why I brought the readers. For those of you that are listening, this is cool. Mollie is the creator of Sleep is a Skill. I've never heard it said like that, by the way. Which, after thinking about that title, it's exactly why I wanted you here.
Fantastic.
It's a company that optimizes how people sleep through a unique blend of technology, accountability, and behavioral change. The company was born from scratching her own itch after a lifetime of poor sleep habits culminated into a mega challenging bout of insomnia for months without end. Oh, you are my sister. Oh, you are totally my sister.
Oh, it was rough. Yeah.
Bet it was. With a background in psychology and human behavior, she went down the rabbit hole. How funny. We talk about rabbit holes here all the time.
I was thinking of that.
To solve her own sleep disturbances without sleeping aids. She became fascinated with chronobiology and, by extension, its practical applications to restore a state of homeostasis, not only to her sleep, but also to her life as a whole. She began sharing what she discovered with other sleep sufferers and became blown away by the power of this work at scale. Yeah, this is going to be interesting. Today, she's worked with hundreds of people to improve their sleep by strengthening their circadian rhythm. Did I say that right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's now spent the past 3 years traveling the world to test sleep quality in different environments across the globe and sharing what she's discovered, like Bora Bora, like maybe Maldives. No, I'm kidding. Just
Not quite that, but yeah, but
there's that possibility. We can dream.
Totally.
Knowing the difference between a life with sleep and without, she's now dedicated her life to sharing the forgotten skill set of sleep. Guys, when I first saw this, a lot of you guys know I go to podcastguest.com to go look for experts. When I first saw this, I was like, okay. of all the cardinal sins of entrepreneurship, lack of sleep is one of the biggest ones. We are just horrible for the ones that are out there grinding it, and you got your nose to the grindstone. It's awesome. Go out there, go get it done. Blah, blah, blah. And yet, even people like Gary Vee, you got to get at least 6 hours of sleep. Other successful people that I know, they're in bed at 9 and they're up at 3:30 in the morning. There's times, and even with us, I'll sleep at 1 in the morning. I won't get up until 9 because I have this need for sleep. If I wake up before that, it gets bad. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, we need to have this young lady here to school us on the need and the proper practice of sleep. So let me start with this. Let's have you do a little bit more about this story of yours, because I'm sure it's absolutely interesting. What the hell? What happened?
What happened? Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's one of the reasons that this has been kind of a unique approach, because I went through some of, the lowest points of my life were related to, or the culmination of just this complete imbalance in my life that led to, I couldn't sleep. And it was so maddening. And it also was a big identity hit to how I knew myself to be. I thought of myself as a healthy person and all the things. But when I, for days on end, couldn't sleep, we were traveling at the time, my boyfriend and I, we were beginning this kind of quest to take on digital nomad life. but we were dipping our toes in the water, adding jet lag into really maladaptive sleep behaviors and just, entrepreneurial burnout, honestly. And so when we started doing that with the levels of stress that we were experiencing with our business and responsibilities and employees and all the things, that was what went. And when that went, it was this experience of, at my lowest point, one of my lowest points during it, I went to the doctors in Croatia with Google Translate and basically was like, I can't sleep, help. And then they don't know what to do with me. And they just give me their version of Ambien. And that moment I leave with this prescription, and it was just such a kind of draw a line in the sand moment of what future am I creating for myself?
Right.
And to do something so primal, or to have the inability seemingly to do something so primal felt very, to put it lightly, disempowering.
Yeah.
So, but also at a loss of what to do to make a difference. And so I'm sure you'll get a sense in this conversation by the end of this that I'm a pretty obsessive personality, probably half why I was having such trouble sleeping. And so
if you're anything like a normal entrepreneur, you definitely have an obsessive type of trait.
Yes, exactly. Those traits are real. And, so I went down the rabbit hole, and with a lot of extra kind of unnecessary, probably in retrospect, suffering along the way. Didn't probably have to go that way, but I'm grateful for it now. Because it provided that fuel of, one, knowing what life looks like when you're not getting that level of sleep, and a newfound respect and understanding, but then also just this sense of, as I would begin to learn more around just some of the basic principles of circadian biology, circadian rhythm, chronobiology, understanding the power of time on our body and our health, and also for me, our moods and our levels of anxiety, depression, all those things. So when I was able to then transform this area after, fill in the blanks, this took a lot of trial and error.
And how many blanks were there?
Yeah, there's a lot of blanks.
I'm sure.
Skipping over that part, getting to the other side, fantastic. Like it changed my life. So, and I couldn't shut up about it, basically. So then I started organically working with people to help with their sleep. And then it kind of just grew from there, and started doing small groups. And now we have online training courses, the podcast, weekly newsletters, all the things that has been incredibly rewarding, because for one, I've seen my life looks absolutely upside down. Now I rise with the sun, and, I'm connected to these rhythms where, but previous to that, when I lived in Manhattan, I had no clue when the sun would rise, when the sun would set, any of that connection to these basic principles, or even the knowing of why that matters.
Do you think that environment has a part to do with that? I mean, Manhattan is an interesting city.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's a city.
Yeah.
The levels of life that you can live in off the ground are many. I mean, you could be on the 45th floor and see the sunrise. You could be on the second floor and miss the sunrise. I mean, does that have anything to do with it?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Great question. I mean, I was living on the 27th floor, and, and one,
you mid-level liver,
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And a couple things. One, so one of the elements of sleep as a skill is that we're looking at sleep through the lens of technology, accountability, and behavioral change. And when bringing some of the technology that can make a difference for the behavioral change aspect, just that awareness, that kind of what gets measured gets managed type of.
Sure.
One of the things that I'll find.
Oh my God.
One of the things that I'll find is one metric that's pretty interesting at the moment is HRV. Are you related with that? Heart rate variability. So
I was going to say, you start bringing acronyms, start explaining them, because I can guarantee you most people won't know what this is. So it's good.
Exactly. Let's break that down. HRV, heart rate variability, is just one of the metrics that we have at the moment that can give a sense of the readout of our autonomic nervous system. And it's simply versus the heart rate, it's the time in between the beats and how quickly your body's able to kind of respond to all the various stressors, within and outside of the body, as in like even external stimuli will impact that. So one thing that I'll tend to notice when I go into cities now, since with all the travel, and granted with COVID, it's been much less. This is the longest time we've really been grounded. But previous to that, when we go to different environments, HRV would often be quite impacted, and cities would be one of those things that you would see that hit. Now, there's all kinds of theories as to the why of that. But even if you get outside of, electromagnetic fields or any of that sort of stuff that's more controversial, aside from that, even just the basic noise pollution, there's plenty of studies on noise pollution and stress levels, and kind of as, and if we look at a primal perspective, hunter-gatherer days, we were just not really meant to be around this many people at such extended period of time, and what that does to
or
our
that amount of noise level. I mean,
amount of noise level.
We're born with two inherent fears, right? Falling and the fear of loud noises. You're in a city.
Yes.
What do you expect?
Yes, absolutely. I happen to have been what is now Hudson Yards. So I was in the before side of Hudson Yards. So it was just covered with construction. I would count any given time, like 17 cranes around me.
Good night.
It was a lot, right? So just as far as, but it's so interesting when you're in almost like the goldfish in the swimming tank, like you don't notice it at the time until
how's
you
the
get
water,
out of it.
boys?
Yeah, exactly.
The hell is water?
Yeah, exactly. Totally. So at my worst, I was going to bed, as the sun was setting, as the sun was rising and like birds are chirping, I'm going to sleep. And that was the lead up to insomnia. So that was what my life looked like a lot in Manhattan, was just this upside down schedule. And so now to be on the other side of that and see what that's made available for just my peace of mind, but also just my stats, like my kind of the bio readouts of how my body is responding to that. It's just pretty unequivocal. And then I see the same thing with clients of really, once we bring in that consistency to their sleep, the power of the impact for the rest of their life.
Sweet. That's okay. So first question. I love that, by the way. Thank you for breaking that down, because there's so much.
So much. I know.
So much.
Rabbit holes.
Numerous, many. We
Yes.
can run anyone. What would be your biggest piece of advice for somebody, anybody for that matter? Because this is not just an entrepreneur thing.
Yeah.
There are business professionals. There are people at home that are dealing with mental health issues.
Sure.
What is your biggest piece of advice that you can give somebody right out the gate when it comes to sleep and what they can do to better that whole situation?
Great question. So I would say on the first side of the things, one, taking in that title, the sleep is a skill mantra, that maxim or approach can help make a difference from the beginning. So the reason I say that is that I'll have a number of clients that will come in and they have labels that they've ascribed to themselves from the get-go, and they've had it for years. I'm a bad sleeper. I'm a night owl. I'm a this. I'm a that.
Oh boy, the self-conversations. Love those. Oh,
the self-conversations, and it can seem basic, like, oh, that's nuanced, but it gives you all your results. And
I was going to say nuance my butt. Talk yourself
exactly.
into existence is proven. I mean, geez, they say anecdotal, but come on, how many people do we know that have talked themselves into crap lives, and how many others have we seen? Though it takes a little longer because our lizard brains, and talk themselves into much more positive results.
Yeah,
it sounds like this is the same. Is that where you're headed?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because
Okay.
once we get the sense that if we're approaching it as a skill set perspective, then like any skill, if you want to learn piano, you start at 101 and you get to mastery.
Yep.
And the same thing can really apply to sleep. And I do get the irony, of course, of this title, and because if we were to go back to maybe hunter-gatherer days and you tried to make this argument, it would probably fall much more in deaf ears than in the 21st century. And that's part of what we're speaking to with this element of chronobiology and circadian rhythm, because I think, again, with that, goldfish water analogy, where so many of us are swimming in that it's normal to have popcorn, Netflix, and wine at 1 a.m. That's not weird. But if you go back to hunter-gatherer days, that would be so bizarre. You'd be kicked out of the tribe.
It's not weird if you're sharing time with somebody.
Yeah.
But it's weird if you're doing it by yourself.
Right, exactly. So because if we go back to that template of how things were, and I'm not trying to say that we should all go off the grid or something, but it can be a useful place to look to see how different or how outside of the norm the approach is, because really this has only been a way of living since Edison, largely because since Edison we've been able to augment our days in such a way that was very, very abnormal. And even if you look back, you might be like, oh, well, I know different like night owl people I've read about. It was one, very rare because it would be actually pretty expensive to run a bunch of candles and all of that. Like that actually the financial element would have hindered a lot of people for many years to even go much past sunset. So there was really a boundary or like a dance that we played with nature for so long. And then we've gotten so far away from that it seems as if that's how it's always been.
We basically flipped off nature and said, no, we're going to do what we want.
Pretty much. Exactly. And then this confusion that we have such high rates of sleep deprivation, globally right now with this expectation of exponential rise, at least particularly with, what we're dealing with right now. And then some theories around what's coming with more people on the planet, as well as if you're
what do you think? That's an interesting one. Sleep deprivation. When it comes to business, because this is just me. Here comes a rabbit hole.
Sure.
Do you think or what do you think might be a driving factor behind it? Because it's a worldwide thing. It's not just here in the States. I mean, when you look at the business world that we all live in, there's deadlines, there's people that are constantly pushing to hurry and get things done. I mean, we're by far, in my humble $5 opinion, we're probably one of the worst, because it's like, well, we're open 24/7 and the rest of the world slows down. We're still going. And it's like, yeah. And we also have very high mental health issue rates. We also have very high, bad health rates on a number of fronts. What do you think's driving? I mean, is it just the desire to just try to hurry up something? Or, I mean, people are sacrificing their virtual sanity, if you think about it, by not getting enough sleep, by chasing that deadline. I always laugh about it. It's like, I love deadlines, especially the sound of the whoosh as it goes flying by. I love those. But, there are deadlines to be had. But what do you think is driving that? Or is it just something where man has just gotten too far ahead of itself and forgotten what it's like to actually live? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Great question. So one, if we take it to one of the guiding frameworks that we'll speak to is Circadian Rhythm Entrainment, which is just a fancy series of words to how to strengthen our circadian rhythm.
I love the fancy words. It's okay.
Yes, exactly. So we have a spectrum, and you can either be, on the weak side of the spectrum or on the strong side of the spectrum around our circadian rhythm. Like, is it just automatic? And we might have like friends that we think too that it just can boggle the mind, or at least this used to be my experience when you'd see people and you go out with them and they'd, be out all night, but they would still wake up at the same time the next morning. It was like, how did they do it?
I have friends like that. I do.
Right. Exactly. And, there's a number of things, but one thing for some trends, for some people like that, can be that they have a bit of a stronger circadian rhythm than the person that is unfazed and sleeps until 11 or whatever. So if we're looking at that circadian rhythm entrainment, then how do we entrain our circadian rhythm to have that count onableness that helps just automate this question of when do I go to bed? When do I wake up? Because that's really the coolest thing. One of the coolest things that I still am fascinated by is that now on the flip side of this, it's like I get tired at the same time every night. I wake up at the same time every morning. This is nuts. Who would have thought? Yeah. And so with that, and this, I promise I will bring it back to your original question. So with that, then two elements are particularly important in training the circadian rhythm. And one, the top one is actually light. And the second one is temperature.
And then we have to talk about a product that I know of as well. About light around that. We'll come back to that because it's very cool. It was cool. We saw it at the Consumer Electronics Show, and I swear if these guys don't catch on, people are daft. Anyway, please keep going.
Oh, you were at CES?
Oh, I go every year.
Oh, I was there there too. Oh
No
my
way.
Yes, that's crazy.
That's so crazy. I was there with my buddy Dana Garrison. We were out there talking to people, and she's a big one too for sleep.
Okay.
We actually went through the area that had
The sleep tech
products.
right next to sex tech.
Yes. Yeah. Oh,
Could you believe that? That was a new one.
you had to bring that up, didn't you? Okay.
It helps us sleep.
Yeah. After, if you get any,
Yeah.
can we sleep now? Anyway, but there was a lot of cool sleep tech. We could talk about some of that and how it may positively or negatively affect and the ones that we liked completely made sense as to what they have. But anyway, so light is one. What's the other?
Yeah, and the other is temperature. So
and that's the other product that I wanted to talk about.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so those two things are super important. And so to bring it back to your question about, so what has happened to us? How have we gotten so off track?
Yeah, what's the deal?
So even before the lockdown in 2016, some of the stats were that, who knows how accurate or not accurate these were out of kind of overall reports, but essentially the call out was that 90% of people in America are they're spending 90% of their days indoor living, and that was before the lockdown. So we can assume that, and if you think about that, if we are, even before the lockdowns, rising, going into a car, which is another indoor environment, and then going into work, and then coming back.
You just killed my whole argument. But road trips.
But road trips, exactly. Right, because that actually alters the windows will alter the
light. Yeah.
The light. And so
there's always a slight tint in it. Yeah.
Right. And so, and it will take out some of the full spectrum element that actually can help make a difference with our hormones and regulations with that. So if we're spending so much time,
so my girlfriend isn't crazy, is what you're saying.
I mean, I don't know. That's a longer topic, but
whenever I get one, I'll make sure to find and ask her.
Exactly. So if we're doing this, it's really akin to being much more, zoo animals than we ever realized. And so if we're
zoo animals, I love it.
We're really, and with that, we're missing some of those key external cues that have kept us on time, really, for so many years. And when we say on time, there really is an on timeness to our bodies. We have a master clock in our brain, because it's called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that's really meant to keep everything on time. I haven't heard that term
in years. Oh my gosh.
Okay, well, let's bring it back.
Yeah,
and then
we're gonna have to. Well, I mean, it makes absolute sense. There's so much missing these days. These terms that most entrepreneurs like. I've heard that before. Yeah, dummy. It's the thing in your head that tells you when to go to bed.
Right. Exactly.
So if we don't get a hold of that, obviously, we're gonna miss a bus. We're gonna miss a whole damn boat. I think, and this brings me to a real. I say this in slight jest and at the same time with loving envy. You farmers still got this shit down.
I know. Yes.
They still
Amish and
yeah,
absolutely.
Up at dawn, down at dusk. They just don't mess around with their bio clocks.
Yeah.
While the rest of us are just sacrificing ourselves on the impalement of business.
Absolutely.
Anyway, please keep going.
No, but you're making such a good point, because it gives us people modern day examples to point to that are doing this thing that occurs now is so weird.
And living well, that they're doing just fine. They have the lowest amount of health issues, the best mental health. I mean, meet an Amish person. Tell me what they're like. They're some of the nicest people on the planet.
So true.
And they're welcoming. They're cool. I mean, I know that every community has, quote unquote, its issues, but as far as their health is concerned, they don't have mental health issues really.
Yeah. No.
Not that I've seen noted. I know that they have other cultural issues and community issues, but I don't know about the mental health one. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is sitting there banging their heads against the wall, saying that that's a stress relief.
Right. Exactly. No, Kevin Kelly out of Wired did a pretty cool expose on the Amish culture. And
I'll need that link, please.
Yeah. Okay.
You've referenced it. We now need a site on the comments. So we'll definitely, if you can find it, that'd be awesome.
Yes. Okay. Very cool. So if we take it back to that circadian rhythm entrainment, it's light and temperature are those two guiding forces. So if light is number one, part of the reason it's number one, or an element to it, is one, that our eyes are really directly connected to that suprachiasmatic nucleus, that main master clock. But besides that, we have multiple clocks in virtually every cell in our body, and then it's an element of that photoreceptors within our skin. So all of this is kind of reading out what are the cues that we're giving our body to keep it on time. And the best example of that is if you go, travel internationally, go from like New York to Hong Kong or something, and we're very thankful for our body's ability to have those readings and constantly being dynamic to see, because otherwise it would be very challenging to travel if we stayed militantly on our clocks. But we have that ability, so we train it, and it takes a few days and whatever, but then we finally eventually get back on track.
Yeah, that jet lag's a bitch some days, let me tell you.
Totally. Absolutely. There's a great tool for that. Time Shifter, the app, is super helpful with that.
Time Shifter. I'll have to go find. And I don't travel like I used to. I mean, I've done the 16 and a half from LA to Singapore.
Yes,
I've
totally.
flown one night, through a day, through a night, to the next day, and completely discombobulated. Just like, we left on Monday, arrived on Wednesday, and I got off the plane and I looked and I was like, what's the day again?
Oh yeah.
I had to be reminded twice. I literally had to be reminded twice. And I was like, oh, that's right, we crossed the date. Like, holy shit.
I know, it's so confusing.
It is.
We've done a lot of that from New York to like Thailand and Bali and what have you. Oh my God, Bali was a lot.
It's funny when you fly east, it's not so bad. It's like if you do the hop from here to UK over to Frankfurt over, and just keep going that way. It's not so bad. But the moment you go the other direction, holy shit. I mean, it's just, you're upside down. And I get what you're saying with regards to skin, because that's a big one. I mean, I use this hand balm from a company that I work with, and the skin is such a precious organ. I don't think people are given enough. They think sleep's just the brain, the eyes, blah, blah, blah. It's like, guys, this is what tells how hot it is. This is why you can't sleep at night some days, or how cold it is, and why you can't sleep some nights. It's this, this thing's important too. I don't think enough people realize that we are a total being, not just bits and pieces. It's a whole puzzle, and the whole puzzle works together if you take care of it.
Yeah.
And sleep is obviously one that many of us are some of the greatest offenders. So this whole thing on the circadian rhythm is just, it's like really fascinating to me.
Yeah. And, I think maybe particularly sometimes it takes those extremes to see the difference. So for some people that maybe have been routinely on a more of a 9-to-5 type lifestyle or what have you, just some sort of real strict schedule, it might be like, oh, well, of course. But when you are entrepreneurial, or it doesn't have to just be entrepreneurial, but have that flexibility in your schedule, or have to deal with shift work, you get it in your bones more than the average person of what happens when it's all over the place. And then what the difference when you are able to pull that and tighten that in, just the quality of your life, just all around, but, certainly in this conversation around sleep. But for the circadian rhythm entrainment element of things, if light is number one and then temperature is number two, one of the other things that's really interesting is that if light is top, then it also is connected, of course, to darkness, and that those two things have a real interplay that's super important. And if we think about melatonin, it's kind of known as the hormone of darkness, and that in order to produce the amount of melatonin that's sufficient and to take us through the entire night with lack of sleep fragmentation or short sleep duration, then part of the thing that we need to seek out is darkness. And so I really make the argument that we're part of more of a dark deprived society at this point. Right?
You're starting to sound like you're advocating for the dark side in Star Wars.
Yes,
you need to be careful, miss.
Exactly.
Okay.
But we
there
need
are no
the dark
Sith
and the
here.
light. Yes.
There are no Sith here. Just
That's so funny too. I'm actually planning to go to Idaho because they have a dark protected skyline. So there's only like
Yes.
a handful. Have you heard of that? It's so
I
cool.
have heard of that.
Yeah.
It's
So the stargazing is supposed to be insane.
there's only a couple places that are like that.
Yes.
I know that that's one. I'm from Maui, which is one. Maui and Mauna Kea are two of
I love
the
Maui.
yeah. Well, so
Yes,
do I.
who doesn't? Yes.
But and there's a huge fight going on over putting up a new telescope and stuff and all this crazy stuff on Mauna Kea. But Mauna Kea and Haleakala are two of the best places to do stargazing from, and that's why they put the observatories up there. But yeah, if you have this Idaho thing, I'd like you to get back to me on. I'd love to hear the experience. But if you have ever been to either of those spots in Hawaii and seen what the sky looks like, the amount of stars that you can see at night. Like I live in Las Vegas. I can count them on two hands.
Wait, I'm in Las Vegas right now.
You are not.
We could have been doing a live.
Oh my gosh, are you kidding? Oh,
yes.
Jeez, this is crazy.
Yes, my boyfriend owns poker companies, so online training for poker players. Yeah, for looking at human behavior. He's a psychology professor, forensics, and would break.
Oh, I'd love to meet him. Not for the gaming part, but I'd love to meet you both, obviously.
Yes.
But that's cool.
So that's with the CES. So we were here, and we were planning to only be here for a couple of months, but then with the lockdown, we've been here, and it's actually been wonderful. We've been minus the summer part, but
yeah, right.
Yeah, minus that part, but still, it's
we haven't
awesome.
we haven't hit 100 yet, but we're about there. It's about 8. I think it says 97 right now.
Yes.
Hey, listen, we're gonna take a short break, real guys. We're gonna take a short break, gang, and we're gonna come right back. I just want to get a couple messages out to you, and when we do, we'll talk a little bit more about circadian rhythm, what it is, and how it works, and then talk a little bit about some of those products that we saw at CES, because damn it if they didn't make sense. One, two, why aren't they out on the freaking market yet? What's holding this stuff up? So I'm one of those guys that comes out of angel investment, and I'm just like, you want me to go find you some money? Let's get you some capital, because this needs to be out of the market like yesterday. I'm surprised I haven't seen them yet.
I know.
And I'm sure they're facing the same fundraising challenges as anybody else, but you get the point. So we'll be right back, guys. Just give us a couple minutes, a couple messages from our sponsors, and we'll talk in a sec.
Okay, great.
And guys, we are back. We were talking a little bit about the circadian rhythm, and I don't think a lot of people really know what that is. And maybe you can dig into a little bit of that, and at the same time, because like I used to do this thing where it was like a sleep cycle is an hour and a half. So every hour and a half, you have one cycle of sleep. It worked. I don't know why. Maybe you can explain some of that.
Sure. Yeah. Great question. So our circadian rhythm, we are, as humans, we are diurnal creatures, meaning that we are meant to be active during the day and at rest at night. And within that paradigm.
So you're saying my cousin isn't a rat?
Yeah, basically, pretty much.
He's just a snitch. He's not a rat. I'm telling you.
Oh my God, dying. Right. So then with that, along,
I couldn't resist. I'm sorry. It's just it's an Italian thing. I'm not Italian, but it's an Italian thing. If Vic DiPietro gets a hold of this, I'm in trouble.
Definitely the most entertaining podcast host I've experienced yet. I love it. So if we've got this, diurnal way of living, then within that, we're operating within this 24-hour cycle or spectrum. And within there, not even a spectrum, really, it's just a cycle. And so within there, then what we're finding is that there's a number of processes that have to happen at different times, and there's kind of a structure and a schedule within there. And then what we find is that if our circadian rhythm is strong, then we have a really count-onable clock in which we get tired around the same time, we eat at around the same time, we're active, we're moving, our body temperature is rising around the same time, it's dropping around the same time, cortisol levels are rising and dropping at the same time. There's tons of other hormones that are doing a similar kind of cyclical nature, but it's all kept on this rhythm. So when we start interjecting all kinds of, so say for shift workers that are on different schedules every week, very, 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 very challenging to the body, and is
Sure.
part of the reason why shift work is labeled as a possible carcinogenic by the World Health Organization, because it's
Wow.
just that
Wow.
damning to our just all around all cause mortality rates. So
Wow.
and then if we think about certainly how I was living, I was akin to a self-created shift work, because
Uh-huh.
I would be up, down, all around. Oh, today I'm going to try to go to bed earlier and, do this for a couple days. And then I go back to my old
And how
ways.
did lying to yourself feel after a while?
Yeah, exactly. Right. It just is really up and down nature to
Uh-huh.
life. And so what that was doing for me, one of the impacts was that I was getting sick more often. This is
Mm-hmm.
before the insomnia, getting sick
Mm-hmm.
more often. I had the beginnings of an ulcer. I
Oh my
actually got
gosh.
shingles
What?
twice. Yeah, I know. It's nuts.
Yikes.
I know. And so just a number of signs that things weren't really working as well
Mm-hmm.
as they could. And then, of course, with insomnia, then it just hit everything
I
over
was
the
gonna
head
say,
with
boy, you hit the jackpot when you got that one.
yeah, exactly.
Let's see, what else can
Exactly.
we get this year? Come on, insomnia. Snake
There you go.
eyes.
It's a real hazing process.
Oh my God,
Totally.
self hazing.
Welcome
I
to
gotta remember that one.
entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So with to bring it back to the original question, the circadian rhythm element of things, it becomes really important for us to, and we're starting to learn a lot of the impacts around when we are off of that circadian rhythm and how that's affecting other elements in our body, even if we're just looking at the hormonal balance.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, all the things that fall out of alignment with that.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't even talked about what that does to even just your waistline, and as it relates to leptin and ghrelin stabilization, and glucose and
Right.
insulin stabilization.
Right.
So there's a number of things that will have a fallout when we aren't on that rhythm consistently and getting that consistent sleep. And
Ah,
there's
gotcha.
a lot of rabbit holes on that.
So basically, if you don't get the right amount of sleep that your body basically is telling you you should be having, and it's not on a regular basis, you can expect to have a pretty rough life, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, really. And
I mean, you
part
ended
of
up with insomnia after
yeah,
the midst of what you were doing. So
yeah,
so entrepreneurs are busy, professionals are busy. I don't. Shift workers are busy because they go home and they have to go be super mom, super dad, and super
yeah.
husband and wife and all that shit. Is there anything they can do to kind of help with that? I mean, like, we live in a world of tech. I mean, let's face it, half of the populace lives on their damn phones. There's got to be something out there that can help with some of this stuff. I mean, I think you mentioned one earlier,
Mhm.
that might be apps that can help to remind, or something that can get some kind of sanity into this calendar that we're screwing up. I mean,
Yeah.
what can we do? What kind of things can we use?
Great call out. So, a couple of things. One, if we want to, one of the best side of the spectrum would be, of course, we after sunset we get rid of all light, TVs, phones, blah 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 blah, all that
Fat
stuff.
chance, but
And
okay.
no one's doing that, right? So living within that paradigm, then how can we make friends with technology in a way that's going to help support us? Because actually, that's interestingly, for many of the clients I'm working with, that's been the saving grace, has been that technology in the face of the problem, which is a lot of technology.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
what are some of the pieces of tech that we can pull? I actually recommend that just about everyone, I have no affiliation with this company, get an Aura ring, at least for right now in 2020.
Nice.
Reason is it infallible? No. Is it going to be akin to a polysonogram? No. Even polysonograms have their own problems, but at the same time, it provides an automated kind of sleep diary, because they are pretty good. A lot of these sleep trackers at
Mm-hmm.
least total
Mm-hmm.
sleep duration. So
Mm-hmm.
they fare pretty well. I would not pay attention to the sleep stages. A lot of people get real wrapped up in that. Those are just their best guess. But the total time duration, and then some of the markers that are around health can be really eye-opening, that they're pretty good at. So like the heart rate and the arc of that throughout the night, the HRV, which we were speaking to,
Mm-hmm.
the respiratory rate can be really eye-opening. I've had people that have discovered that they had sleep apnea from some of these wearables, and that's a
Yep.
big deal.
Yep.
And then
Huge
body
deal. My dad
temperature.
had sleep apnea. Boy,
Okay.
was that was a huge effect on his health.
Huge. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, that makes me so happy that he discovered that. So, because a lot of people go their whole lives having no real clue.
He was a truck driver, and he would snore very heavily. to the point that he finally, at one of the doctor's visits, they said, hey, we think you might have sleep apnea. And he ended up getting a CPAP. And of course, back in those days, those things were horrible.
Yeah.
But he tried. It did help him some. Unfortunately, he was so far along in life, his health eventually succumbed to cancer. But the fact that that was becoming, what's the word? The fact of becoming aware certainly started getting my attention. Like, what is it? What is it? What does it do? The deprivation of oxygen while you're sleeping. And I'm like, holy shit. I wonder if I'm doing that. And of course, I had been told that I snore too. Haven't had the apnea issue yet. I use breathing strips at night so that I can breathe at night.
Okay. Yeah.
I still snore, but it's like when I wake up, I can wake up. I'm not tired. Like I haven't been getting enough oxygen. So anyway, please continue.
Yeah. Well, in alignment with that, for anyone that's listening that has something similar, some cheap option or cost-effective items that you can do is get Snore Lab, the app, and it will kind of give you a percentage of it. Basically records your sleeping throughout the night and give you a percentage of how much time it was audible. And so you can actually play back and listen to the sound of the snoring. And
so I can put the phone out in the living room and it'll tell me that I was snoring.
Yeah, if you put it within range that it can hear you, then it will.
I can put it in the living room; it'll hear me.
Yeah. Okay, got that. All right. Yeah. Well, we could definitely look at that. There's another book too that's a great resource called Sleep Interrupted, because there's kind of that misnomer that we might think of people that have sleep apnea as being overweight, and they're all these things.
There's a whole bunch of other stuff that's it's
whole
not
bunch
just
of other
overweight.
stuff.
Yeah,
and
there is.
I just had a client that's very fit. Trim, sleep apnea.
Yeah.
And there can be mild to severe cases of that too. And then unfortunately, possibly like in the case of your dad, the sad state of affairs as how it stands right now is that often people aren't being diagnosed until it's really just so advanced, and that all these other things have broken down in their health.
Late 90s, there wasn't a lot of data on this stuff, and they caught his probably 90s, I want to say 96, 97. And, by that time he was near his 60s already. So, I mean, it is what it is.
Got that. Yeah. Because even people that don't qualify as having sleep apnea, you can still have obstructed breathing.
Yeah.
And
that's just as bad.
Yeah. Can be definitely problematic to your sleep. So mouth taping is actually a really kind of lands as wild or comical thing that you can do for your sleep too. Like I'll do that every night, like tape mouth. And then
really?
Yeah, and you can see the difference on your respiratory rate if you have some of these trackers.
What's it called? Mouth shaping?
Mouth taping. So you
mouth
can
taping.
Go on like Amazon. It's, just grab some tape, and then there's one specific for mouth taping. But you can also just get medical grade kind.
Why does this sound like an episode of Friends?
Yes, exactly.
And it's Ross who's doing it.
Yeah, seriously. I know it's wild. And people even do it for kids, which will get all kinds of pushback. But it helps to train to breathe through your nose versus your mouth. So that's a whole, and that's
what feeds your brain oxygen is your nose, not your mouth. Your mouth only feeds your lungs.
Right. Exactly.
How are you supposed to think? I don't know if you ever heard of the Wim Hof breathing method, but
yes.
Okay, so I do that.
Good. Great.
Boy, let me tell you, you want to talk about a great way to wake up. It is just the absolute, and you don't even have to get out of freaking bed. You wake up, you hit it 20 times, you take the dizziness and do the whole reset thing.
Yeah.
But your brain is getting oxygen, like super oxygenated right first thing in the morning. What I actually usually do though is I usually walk out to my balcony, hit the 20, come back in, sit down, relax for a minute, and then do that. So I don't think enough people realize if you're not breathing through your nose at night, you're not giving your brain the oxygen it needs to rest and repair.
Yeah. And
this is just from a nutritionist standpoint. We were always told if you're not getting enough oxygen to your brain, you're depriving your whole body from its ability to because here's your CPU. If this thing ain't fed right and it's not cooled right, water, and you're not giving it the time to rebuild, you're beating yourself down.
Exactly. That's partly why it's getting some more press in recent years, because of the it appears to be a pretty clear link up or correlation between sleep deprivation and then later in life neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia. Basically out of our understanding of something called lymphatic drainage. So many of us have heard of lymphatic drainage, but lymphatic drainage is just the flushing out of the brain at night with waste. And it's something that happens within deep sleep. So the first stage of sleep. And if we are not setting up our nights consistently to be able to get that deep sleep, then we're missing out on some of that property. So we're left with plaque, an amyloid beta plaque.
Basically making you a fathead with some crack on it. So it's,
Pretty much. And then when you look at a brain of, Alzheimer's, and then with real clear sleep deprivation brain, they both have that amyloid beta plaque that's pretty substantial. So that correlation has gotten way more press as far as that there's something that needs to be done about these sleep deprivation rates. And that's kind of where we've been left. Is just something needs to be done, and not a lot of there's lots of people running to that around the sleep tech, as we were talking about, and that want to make a difference there, but it takes a lot of behaviors. So back to your original question, Oura Ring, or there's tons of other ones. There's Dream Headband, and there's the Whoop. There's Apple's going to be coming out with their version shortly on the watch, and so lots of different things that we can do, but also even for women that can be really helpful, because we have something called the Infradian rhythm to be mindful of, which is around 28-day rhythm that men don't have. And so the different points of our cycle that will actually really can greatly impact our sleep. And also our body temperature, which, as we mentioned, temperature is a big thing with sleep as well. So when we get more attuned to where we are in our cycle, we can actually have more of a say in the type of sleep that we're getting, and to manage all that. And those trackers can help us stay on very closely, I mean, to the day, certainly, as far as where we're at in our cycle, and make a difference there.
That's huge. I remember, I'll talk about this real quick, and then we're gonna have to wrap this up, because we're right at that spot.
Yes.
CES last year, a friend of mine came with me, and we kind of gave her the tour. She'd never been to CES before.
Yes.
And we came across the sleep section, and two products stuck out in my mind hugely, because they made absolute freaking sense. The first one was a mask that had LEDs in them, and they explained the whole thing. They didn't say it was circadian rhythm. I don't remember hearing that word, but they explained the whole thing about light and how it affects our ability to ready for sleep or ready for waking. And it made so much sense. I looked at it and I'm like, why isn't this on the market right now? It says, well, we're here, we're doing this, we're doing that. I'm like, good Lord, please just get the money and get the damn thing out on the market. Ship it. Just ship it. It still boggles my mind that entrepreneurs are such perfectionists. It's like they never met Seth Godin yet. The intent of having an LED that slowly wakes with the time, and it's connected to your phone. It knows what time it is, and it begins to bring you back according to what time you want to wake up. So if you happen to have one of those off shift times and it's daylight, you can put this mask on, go to sleep, and wake up when it's time to get up for your overnight, your 11 to 7, if that's what you do. The other one was a blanket that when you lay down at night, I think it says the first thing it does, I don't know if your temperature goes up or down when you sleep. I can't remember.
Down.
Okay, so
down is particularly in the first stage.
Okay, so during the first stage, it's literally cooled. It helps to cool your body off. And then as you cool off to a certain temperature, it begins to keep you warm so that you don't overcool. You don't get too cold.
Yes.
But it kind of balances you out so that you can rest comfortably. I said, well, that makes sense, because I'm the the old school guy that leaves one leg out from underneath the blankets for the temperature. I'm that guy. One of my ex-girlfriends used to always ask me, why do you leave a leg out from underneath the blankets? Because I can't tell when it's hot, when it's cold, unless I do that. And they thought I was nuts.
I still get it. Yes.
Yeah.
Chili Pad is probably one that's made the biggest splash as far as the cooling tech as of right now.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'll be so excited as more come onto the market. There's also Bed Jet is kind of a fan that will cool the bed.
Nice.
Yeah. But one of the Chili Pad tech is that they have the Uller, and that will cool you in the first stage, and then it slowly is warming you, because as you go into REM, our body is naturally kind of heating up a little in alignment with that.
That was funny because the first thing I'm thinking, of course, is the old bed warmer pans that they used to throw coals and they put it under the bed, and nobody realizes that if you did it wrong, you could set the house on fire.
Yes. Definitely.
But they did it they would do it on a nightly basis, because that's how you kept your ass warm in those cold New England winters. So it is what it is. All right, cool. We're not even halfway through this, you guys. There's so much more to talk about. Yeah, we're gonna have to definitely do a part 2. This was absolutely enjoyable. And thank you for bringing so much already to the listeners and to the watchers here. Even for me, I got a ton out of just this one deal. I'm sure there's a lot more to talk about. Thank you for entertaining my humor and my curiosity. I'm sure we're probably going to get some other people that will comment and stuff like that. As they do, how would they find you?
Oh, great question. And so the feeling is mutual. It's been such a cool conversation. So sleepisaskill.com is just the bucket of all the things. So it has the podcast is on there, the Sleep is a Skill podcast. It has weekly newsletter, a downloadable PDF that's called the Optimized Bedroom. So you can get kind of a foray into some of the sleep tech elements of things and how you can set up your bedroom in a way kind of biohacker-esque to whatever level.
I'll probably go hunt that link down, because I'm sure everybody will want to just grab it. So that's cool.
Yeah. And when you get that, you can also get the weekly Monday newsletter. It's called Mollie's Monday Obsessions, because clearly I'm pretty obsessive. So I'll just say all the things I'm obsessing about with sleep each Monday. And then it's very crowdsourced too. So anything that that you find, please send along, and I'll include it in the newsletter around sleep. And then we also have a sleep assessment, online course, all kinds of things around making a difference with that.
This is good. This is good. And then they can find you on social. I'll have all of those links posted in the description. I think we're there. I think we're there for this round anyway.
For this round, yes, totally.
For this round. When we do this again, and we'll have to figure out when that'll be. And when we do this again, let's do this in person, since you're in the same freaking city.
Yes, how cool is that?
Yeah, we'll go find a place to sit down, and we'll just do this maybe at a. Oh, have you ever been to Bad Owl Coffee?
No.
Ooh, Harry Potter themed.
Oh, no way.
It is awesome. And they got great coffee. Their people there are so cool. I know the owners, they're sweethearts. They're actually from Hawaii too, interestingly enough. I'm like, awesome. Hawaiians that are interested in UK magic. Interesting. Okay.
Niche.
Yeah, total niche. Loved it. But yeah, we'll do that. And we're going to go ahead and sign off, guys, at this point, because it's just getting to that time. And we want to respect everybody's time. I want to respect your time as well. Thank you again for coming and hanging out with me.
Thank you.
Having a cup of coffee, and this is like really important shit. I mean, you can't just walk around and go, I'll get it when I get it. It just doesn't work that way. And if you guys haven't heard that throughout this whole freaking podcast, there's a lot of research behind this stuff. There's a lot of stuff that matters when it comes to getting your sleep.
A lot of stuff. And please feel free. I'll look forward to our second part, because I feel very mission driven around this, just because what I went through, and I feel like I suffered more than I had. The experience felt like suffering more than I had to. And I certainly don't want people to feel alone on this journey. So there's all kinds of ways that can have accountability, have support, and then a knowing of what to do to make a difference. So
that's one of the best things about podcasting, like what you have, what I have, is we're able to open up these subjects and get this kind of information to people so they can know that they're not alone.
Yeah.
And that's why I ask for people to come and share their stories and their expertise. So you guys know how we like to end this. Love all of you. Thanks so much for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening on Anchor, any of your other favorite platforms for podcasting, download, go ahead and subscribe. I have plenty more wonderful guests like this young lady here that are going to be bringing all kinds of great subject matter. This one happens to be one that I actually have some passion of myself around, only because it's needed. And I'm probably one of the greatest self-offenders of this one anyway.
Aren't we all? Yes,
yeah,
totally get
right?
that.
Yeah. Coffee. So we we love you guys. Take care of yourselves. Stay up, stay healthy, stay safe, but live. We will talk with all of you guys again real soon. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now.
For more information on Java Chat, visit www.javachatpodcast.com. You've been listening to Coffee with Mike on Java Chat. Tune in weekly to this podcast for the next episode. You can also download or subscribe today on your favorite podcast platform. A production of Oasis Media Group, LLC. Located in Las Vegas, Nevada. Copyright 2019. All rights reserved.